Welcome back to the Dynasty Dingers podcast. We are recording on Wednesday, September 11th. For our new listeners of Dynasty Dingers is a Scout the Stat Line podcast. If you are a member, we thank you. If you are not yet a member, make sure you go check out the website at scoutthestatline.com, where you will find prospect model, weekly and monthly articles covering prospects, major leaguers, trades, drafts, and all things baseball. Doc is back yet again from his worldly travels. I guess we could say worldly, right, Doc? What's going on?
Worldly, yeah. I mean, went to Los Angeles for a bit, caught a Dodgers game, saw an Otani bomb and Matthew Boyd making him and Freddie Freeman look silly for a couple at bats. It was interesting. Um, yeah, the Dodger dogs are just hot dogs, but that's okay. Then I went to New Orleans, flew into a hurricane, and I had to turn around and come back home. So here I am, get a podcast out of it. Got chlorinated hair from the pool, so sorry everyone. The curls will be back for next podcast.
Yeah, I haven't been able to jump in many pools this summer, but you've got the pool here, as you said. We're going to be talking a little bit about Matthew Boyd today. Today's episode is really just kind of a final recap of some of the names towards the end of the season that have gotten hot. We're going to do a little buy or sell on some of these names going into the 2025 season and really kind of discussing their value for 2024 off season, whether you want to be acquiring these players or possibly selling these players. So, Doc, you mentioned Matthew Boyd right off the top of the show, the Otani home run. I think he's a great name to kind of start things off with. The reemergence of Matthew Boyd. It feels like it's been 6 or 7 years now that we've been really keeping an eye on Boyd's career, and over time injuries have just really derailed him. But what are you thinking long term in Dynasty? Is he a guy that you are going to be relying on for maybe 100 innings next season? Or if you have him on a Dynasty roster, are you just looking to maybe acquire a third, fourth, or fifth round pick in FYPD?
Well, I mean, I would say someone that we were looking for, we were looking for a comeback for years. I think everyone kind of forgot about him. This year we said it's not happening. I was among those people. I mean, you look at his numbers of he hasn't thrown since 185 in 2019. He had 125 innings there. Sorry, 185 innings in 2019, and then he hasn't gone over 78 since in any season. So that's not great, right? And he did do 170 the year before that in 2018, but we're talking 2018, 2019. This is quite some time ago, right? Um, and he had that big year. He had that big 238 strikeout year in 2019. When you do that kind of year, even though he had a 4.56 ERA, which is not great, I think the ball was juiced up, but still, those 200 plus Ks, man, like people remember those. So he's got a little bit of lingering name brand value. What I saw from him in LA at Dodger Stadium, he was, like I said, making incredibly talented batters look silly. I don't know what to expect with him. He's been on and off. He had, like last year, he looked completely washed, and that's why Detroit didn't bring him back, right? So if anyone can help an arm, looks like Cleveland has a good track record of doing that. Right now, he's operating with a 1.6 walk per nine and only an 8.2 strikeout per nine. So the Ks aren't actually what they were. But dude, if you can keep limiting walks and runs like this, you're good, brother. I don't know what to expect for him, but if these guys can just if they've managed to, I haven't done the Matthew Boyd research. I've been on the go, but he's 6'3", 223. He's got that prototype size. He's still only 33 years old. For a pitcher, it really is only 33. You can if this guy is turning a corner here, how fun would that be? Like a Charlie Morton kind of career where he just becomes like a mid to late 30s stud. Maybe not, but that'd be fun, right?
Yeah, I think Charlie Morton's a fantastic name there, right? A guy that we had completely ruled out, right? And that's what we did with Boyd. You said it perfectly. Like, you fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It was more like fool me 4 times. And here
Yeah.
he is finally coming back to reemergence. But I think that's a great comp if Boyd can continue this success. And I think when we look at 2025, Doc, I'm guessing his performance in the postseason will really play heavy into whether Cleveland brings him back, whether another contending team this offseason gives him a 1 or 2 year deal. And placement in where he lands for which organization he's pitching for, I think will be really important for how we're kind of forecasting the 2025 season. But what are you thinking for innings next year, Max? If we're anticipating a good WHIP and a good ERA, I would say the threshold would be around 100. Do you think that's fair?
I mean, it's not like he's a kid who's never done it before. That's usually what I'm hesitant
Okay.
on. Like he's gone. It's a weird career. I don't know what to really make of it. In fact, let me pull up. He's probably been busting around the minors a little bit. So he did 21 innings in the minors this year. So he has only done 28 this year in the majors, but he has done 21 in the minors. So he's like, yeah, getting close to 50. He'll get between 50 and 70, I guess, by the time things are done. Yeah, not great, but he's given us multiple 170 plus innings seasons. Can he do that? Is it something he's capable of delivering? I don't know. If he gave me 120 to 130 innings next year, I guess I'd have to be satisfied with that. That's what I would imagine a team is. A team's probably aiming for 150. Frankly, it sounds like we're talking about Tyler Glasnow. Like I'm not really in terms of innings.
Yeah, innings.
Not talent, obviously, but you know,
Well, and it's funny
whatever.
you're going to bring this up. I mean, I want you to actually talk on that next with Glasnow because he went out at the most unfortunate time for fantasy managers, right before playoffs or right in the middle of fantasy playoffs. And I guess this kind of ties right into Boyd, which is, when you're constructing a contending team and you have a guy like Tyler Glasnow, are you more likely to move him mid-season because that the impending doom is essentially coming sooner than later?
Yes. I
Yeah.
said that. I mean, I actually have taken 0 victory laps on this. It's uncouth. I mean, it sucks. It sucks to see it happen, right? Like, I don't want to, like, this, I don't want baseball to be less entertaining. I don't want probably a nice guy. I don't want his career to be, messed up and shortened and what could have been. He actually was delivering more than I thought. I thought for a second maybe this is the year, right? Where
Yeah.
LA just fixes something here. But 134, that's okay. But if you're playing fantasy baseball and, like, frankly, if you want to just use them for roto for the innings you get them, that makes maybe more sense to me. But like you said, head to head, knowing that there's a good chance he won't be there for my fantasy playoffs, well then who cares, right? Like I don't want to go for him. I said from the get go, if you're going to draft him, by all means do it. This could be great being in LA. But I said if he starts doing Glasnow things like really good pitching, if he gets built like by halfway through this year, I think he had kind of like calmed people down a bit, maybe made them not so worried about his health. People love to with him. They just want to forget it. They want to pretend it's not real. That he's not made of glass. If you were smart, you traded them. Now he's
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that's the hard truth. A lot of fantasy managers right now are settling into that realization that to what you said, that they thought this was the year that's just, it's not. And I think moving forward, you have to be operating under that assumption, which is it is coming eventually. And unfortunately for Glasnow this year, it came at the worst possible time. Next name on the list today, Doc, we're going to break into a couple of hitters here. Matt Wallner for the Minnesota Twins is first on the list. He is having a very nice end of season, much like he did last year. He has 216 at-bats, 12 home runs, a 261 average, a 380 on base percentage, slugging 561. His metrics, pretty darn good. Average exit velocity, 94.1. Barrel percentage, 20.6. Hard hit rate, 55.9. Bat speed, 77.4, which is an elite percentile. Doesn't really hit lefties at all. But Wallner is putting together, like I said, a similar 2023 finish. Are you getting more and more excited about potentially a 120, 130 game season in 2025 that could be lucrative?
Yeah. I mean, he's someone who I feel like Twins hitters is it just me or is it easy to overlook them? Is that something that happens? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's hard because early it's so darn cold.
Yeah. And there's kind of a random niche market like up north, right? Maybe everyone kind of forgets about them a little bit. I don't know. But as you said, I mean, even against lefties, he gets on base. 342 OBP against lefties, 388 OBP against righties. Frankly, I would say that I've overlooked this guy, and it's too bad because he's kind of what I like. Let's go into it, right? He's the classic 26-year-old breakout.
Yeah.
The 25 to 28-year-old breakout from the South. Mississippi, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. He was a first-round pick, 6'4", 220 pounds. It's this is where I'm excited for the future because I wasn't that really that big of a prospector in 2019, and so I could see if you were, he probably is a guy that you remember, right? So you're more likely to be, oh yeah, he's flashing, yeah, I like this guy, let's bring him back, like let's pick him up on a flyer. I missed the Wallner train because I just see some, Twins bad, so I'm excited about going forward with prospects, hey. Hope it doesn't take that long. But Brock Wilken or VS2, these guys who I was hyped up on in the preseason and off season, preseason. Dang you NFL, spring training and whatnot. Sometimes with some of the guys we love now, they're gonna go through the bust path or the forgotten path, and then there's gonna be at least one or two who come out and they're Matt Wallners or they're Alec Burlesons or whatever. This guy's he's actually a profile I really like, the high OBP, high power. So, yeah, frankly, kind of wish he wasn't up in Minnesota, but whatever, dude. Yeah, it sounds like a value play. Someone who, frankly, probably won't. I could see him being a guy people, again, don't really fully value next year. Maybe like Brent Rooker heading into this year. Is that crazy? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's
Heading into this
a
past
fair
year,
comp.
not
Yeah.
next year. Yeah.
He's very similar to the Joey Gallo profile as well, probably without it is the prodigious power. The three true outcomes is kind of what I'm referring to here. He has 79 strikeouts and 216 plate appearances. It's 180 at bats. So, I mean, the Ks are pretty ridiculous with only 22 walks. But when you look at his best minor league season, 2022, he had 27 home runs in 128 games, had 170 strikeouts, but batted 277 with a 412 on base percentage. So again, we could be looking at maybe a more moderate version of Joey Gallo who doesn't hit the ball as far. And I think as long as they're keeping him kind of in that rotative spot where he's in the best metrics fit possible, right? Where
Yeah,
they're
I'm
playing
weirded out, dude.
metrics.
He's got such a weird profile.
The strikeouts are crazy high.
Why is his OBP so high? But he's barely walking. It's an interesting situation.
He hits
I
the
don't
ball
know.
incredibly hard.
Yeah, it's just but there's such a big difference between his average and his OBP, right? It's
Yeah.
and it's not like if he was just doing this for the small sample this year, that'd be one thing. But he has 380 this year, 370 last year. He's done this in the minors, so it'd be interesting. I'm getting a little bit of Brent Rooker vibes, so we'll find out more, right? More.
Yeah, definitely. I would be acquiring right now because I don't think the cost is too high. Okay, next is a friend of the show. I guess friend of the Scout the Stat Line. Big fan here. We've had some run-ins before. Connor Norby's next on the list, and Doc, I'll tell you, he is outperforming my expectations, and I'm starting to become impressed. Had a multi-home run game this past week. Is up to 8 home runs now in Miami. Was day-to-day as of yesterday, I think. But we're talking about a kid that is flashing fantasy starter potential. Where are you with Connor Norby? Are you buying or are you selling?
Man, I'd have to, he seems like a guy. Yeah, he gave some. Basically, I'm gonna say it, man. I'm gonna say it. If anyone's still listening to our podcast, Dynasty Dingers, this point of the year, you deserve to hear the juicy stuff. Connor Norby got upset with one of us because we made one of us, not Matt or I, maybe, but it was someone that's got the stat line on X had mentioned that no, they're not going to be able to get the Orioles won't be able to get this guy because they're only going to give up Norby, who's not a top guy, something like that. And Norby DMs this guy saying, "I'm a top guy," so insecure guy. Come on now. Norby, if you're listening, that's awesome. If you're listening to this podcast, if Connor Norby is listening to this podcast, please, dude, I'll send you a location. We can fight. It'd be hilarious. But we have to record it, and I can use it like instead of a podcast one week, it'll just be like 3 rounds of bare
And you
knuckle
have to dress up in
boxing.
some kind of character suit, like
I just
whether
know I'll
it's
be wearing I'll wear his jersey on the Orioles. It was like, what's going? It's like when that guy. Anyway, one time a guy showed up on Dr. Phil dressed like Dr. Phil. Anyway,
That's hilarious.
just
I
getting
will,
this guy.
and I want to ask you with Norby, the running question around the industry, and it's all for clickbait, but I genuinely am interested in your take, kind of Norby or Jackson Holiday, not dynasty, but next year I think is interesting. Are you more
Maybe. I mean, I'm
inclined?
looking.
Who are you
Go on,
taking?
sorry. As you were.
Oh no, I was just saying who are you who are you preferring in 2025? Because I think it's a lot harder than it was 2 weeks ago. I would have taken Holiday equivocally without question. Now that Norby's at 8 home runs and 113 at bats, batting 265, has added 2 stolen bases. We could be looking at a 2010 guy next year with a 260 average at Norby. I don't know that we get that from Holiday.
I'm still rolling with Jackson Holiday, brother. I just have more faith in the guy. I mean, if you look at their savant in in what we're seeing in a small sample size from Norby, his sprint speed is 95, 95th percentile. Holiday is 94th percentile. I don't know. I'm not really seeing like tons of great EVs from Norby. I mean, holidays aren't amazing, but I just feel like I'm seeing like a really high sweet spot from Norby. So is this a fluky thing, or is he going to be one of these guys who just knows how to pull a ball, hit it exactly in the right spot? I'm not. The metrics look. I'm going to be honest. They look terrible on Norby. Like they're like almost
Yep.
like very bottom of the barrel. And he's 24. And he's and Holiday's 20. Man, this guy is as a child. You kind of forget about that, right? And while Holidays doesn't have his metrics aren't fantastic either, they're in a better place to see growth from. If Norby has a little bit of growth from here, he's still not going to be looking great with the metrics. If Holiday has moderate growth, he's going to be in like good territory now. Like he's not that far off. And so in the meantime, yeah, we'll see what happens. I just think again with that age and knowing Holiday's bloodlines and his prospect pedigree, I just have faith that we're going to see a bigger jump from Holiday next year than Norby now. That said, Norby's producing pretty good stuff for who he is right now, and he'll have a lot, And then also you got to think the Orioles are probably not going to be this bad as they've been slumping lately. They're probably going to be starting next year better and playing pretty good throughout next year. So your counting stats are going to be up with Holiday too. I think he'll be in a regular next year again. So, yeah, man, I'm very proud of Norby though. He went from the guy who people were forgetting about in Baltimore to a top guy. He finally got his dream. He's a top guy. I'm saying it, brother. You're a top guy in Florida. They need you in Miami right now.
Yeah, you brought up just the overall profile and how he's essentially kind of tapped out his production, because I would agree with that when you look at the numbers. He has a 54.2% pull rate. He really does tap into that pull side power. He has had a couple opposite field home runs, which were nice, but his launch angle is perfect. It's at a 17-degree angle. His max EV is at a 107.5. So that was honestly even a little bit more juice than I thought. But average exit velocity of 85.7 overall. That's interesting. 13.9% barrel. Like I said, he does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll call it 5. That's actually a lot. 3 to 4 opposite field home runs. And I've watched a number of his home runs. They aren't moonshots, right? They are kind of wall scrapers first row, but he is getting it done. And I think I'm right on board with you. I would way rather have Jackson Holiday next year. I think the only thing that I wanted to bring up to you is just there's probably going to be a price disparity where we see Norby taken second to last pick of the draft, last round pick of the draft, where Holiday's going to have more upside, as you had talked about. So I think in redraft, at least, I'm willing to grab him late in Dynasty. What would you give up? Would you give up a third round FYPD and a 15-man for him?
For Norby?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Would you give up a
yes.
second round?
I mean, I'd give up a second round if you can keep this up. This is all going to be like. Here's the thing: we got a couple weeks left, and they actually matter, right?
Yeah.
Because every week is going to increase his sample size. So if he's like doing this throughout the end of the year, I'm excited, right? Especially if he's doing it against teams who are trying to fight for their playoff lives, like pretty intense baseball. And he's doing it at an interesting time where a lot of players get grinded down and slowed down. If he's speeding up at the end of the year, I like to buy those guys. The guys like Nolan Jones was a guy like that who got too much helium, and obviously something's wrong with him. We're not going to talk about that right now because we'll spend a whole podcast analyzing the downfall of Nolan Jones. But point being that guys who I don't see him getting. I mean, actually, you know what? Norby could be one of those guys, though. He could be a guy. It depends on who's talking about what. He could be someone who just one fantasy guy, maybe maybe one the CBS guys start talking about Norby as this, sleeper of the draft. If they do it in February or March, pretty early on, you're gonna hear like suddenly Norby stock will be going up. But if for some reason people forget about it, let's do it. Sign me up. I'm all about the value game, and I think there's enough juice here to see what's going to happen under the next year.
Yeah, and second base is still a shallow position too. So, if you can find a guy that's going to at least be a starter for you, or even be a middle infielder that has the ability to fill in for your second baseman during injury, price is key. Breaking into a few pitchers here, Doc. Bowden Francis is going to be the first on our list. While you've been busy, he's quietly put together a really nice 6-week stretch, kind of given fantasy managers the outlook we had expected coming into the year as a potential sleeper. Now, Bowden Francis isn't as young as we would hope. I want to say he's 28 years old while I look this up. But are you buying or selling Bowden Francis in Dynasty, especially going into 2025?
Well, I'm selling my Wi-Fi connection today. Apparently we're still rolling here, but I kind of lost you for a sec. I do know we're talking about Bowden Francis.
Yes.
And I caught you just at the best time. Love the build. I wish it's so funny, guys, isn't it? I'm sure. You know what? I think our audience can relate to this. I know. We're supposed to be these professional analysts. We watch every single game. Hey, listen, I don't get paid enough for that. Hey, CBS comes calling. All of a sudden, all right, we're talking. But man, I've had things come up this last month, and I'm still in there. I'm competing. I'm posting when I can. But Bowden Francis is a guy I got in one league, and I wish I had him in some more. I'll say that much. Again, 28-year-old, especially pitchers to have a longer shelf life, just slightly, in my opinion. They can. And 6'5", 220, 28 is not too old. I love what he's been doing out there, flashing a lot of upside. I'm buying in going forward. I think there was some off-season hype over him, wasn't there?
Yeah, once he got the opening 26-man rotation or roster spot, once he made it the rotation out of spring training, there was excitement, but he was horrendous and quickly lost that.
Yeah. I'm looking at the months right now, kind of Jekyll Hyde. But man, August was so good, and I know that was good because I picked him up at that time, and I was kind of riding that one out, and I'm excited to see what he brings going forward. If the Jays need it, I know that I'm still not fully excited about the Blue Jays right now. I don't feel great for their fans moving forward, but this is something they really needed. Shot in the arm from one of these 25 to 28-year-old breakouts, as we like to talk. Love it. Love to see it, and I'm buying.
Yeah, it's funny that when I look at this list that we put together today that we compiled, it is really like 24 to 28. Everybody here almost is in the same age range. I think Connor Norby might be the youngest, maybe with Spencer Arrighetti on this list. But it's just funny because these are the names that weren't overly excitable throughout the year and that we needed to talk about before the season wrapped. And they're actually performing well. So next name on the list is Michael Kopeck, also coming in at 28 years old. Now a Dodger, and in and out of the Dodgers closer position. They are kind of at times running that as a committee. Yeah. But Kopeck has been absolutely dominating since he got to Los Angeles. And whether you could say it's just the uptick in performance and competitiveness with the Dodgers, and he's no longer with the White Sox, there's a lot you could say. But in 17 games, a .53 ERA, that's 17 innings total, 21 strikeouts. Opposing average is a .093. Doc, my question for you is this a top 5 lockdown closer over the next 3 years?
It's a bold take. I'm not willing to say that right now, but I think it had that upside is absolutely there. Going from one of the worst organizations in the league, sorry, Chicago proved me wrong, right? To one of the best. So it's very exciting. His numbers are elite. He's always had that Texas fireballer kind of presence, that je ne sais quoi, that panache. He's got that. He's got Michael Kopeck. You say Michael Kopeck's a lockdown fireballer closer. I don't think too many people disagree that he has what it takes. It's all about consistency and, just getting the job done. And so far he's doing that with them. I got him in our new startup, right? Our little best ball thing we did. I think I got him at a pretty good value too after pretty much, all the Norby actual closers. I was like, okay, well, who's the next closer? Who's got the stuff? Who's in a good position to ascend to an elite closer position? Because I was having a regret I hadn't taken one of those guys at that point. And I said, ooh, Kopeck? Yeah, bro, he's going to be that guy. So I guess I put my money where my mouth was. It was at a value, but yeah, if I was doing a dynasty startup right now, I would be trying to find the best spot for him. I'm not going to overpay, but because it has been volatile. But I like the position. I like him going forward.
Yeah, I wanted to pull it up because I took him in a draft when we were doing that 30-man. And I got the same thing. I got him late. And it was kind of surprising to me because the ascension had already kind of started, but we have this overarching fear. I mean, he's been a prospect now for 8 years. Almost ever since the video came out of him hitting 105 with the running jump throw with the Boston Red Sox, comes over, doesn't have quality control, has Tommy John. There's a number of issues. And at 28, here with the Dodgers, it seems like, all things are trending in the right direction. I think the biggest piece of his numbers to really look at is that whip. With Chicago in 43 games, about 43 innings, his whip was at a 1.35. Definitely had problems with the walks last year and this year. In LA, his whip is at a 0.53, only 4 walks in those 17 innings. So I think that is the control will always be his calling card. If he can get that under control, no pun intended, he'll definitely be that guy we want. Transitioning back to hitter here, Michael Harris Jr. is on the list, and I guess my question for you is: are you selling and getting him off any of your dynasty teams and walking away, or are you still holding hope that Michael Harris can be a top 5 round player throughout the rest of his 20s?
So I'm an OBP supremacist, and with that in mind, I never really and also I'll say this offseason, I started realizing I started thinking that I'm being too hard on Michael Harris. I forgot how young he was. Really, really young, dude. Like, this is his. I'm sure he's actually 23 still, and like pretty young 23 right now. He was 22 last year, 21. I started realizing, no, there's room for growth here. Yeah, sure, his 18 and 20 sounds a little mid, but the fact that he almost had a 300 average his first 2 seasons, that does matter in a lot of leagues. In average only leagues, obviously, I was definitely granting his value is way higher. So it's kind of funny that I started warming up to MH2 and thinking, oh, you know what? If he just takes an extra little step here, 25 with that 300 average and 330 to 340 OBP, is that's actually amazing. Yeah, I love that. And as soon as I didn't draft him, I didn't have him in any dynasties, and it just didn't work out for me to get him in any leagues. But I guess that was a good thing because it's all falling apart, folks. I don't know what happened. I really don't know. We're down to a 245 batting average, a 285 OBP. I guess I should have just kept being a hater for no reason. I don't know. I hope for the kid, right? He's still only 23. If I had him in dynasties, I'd be holding because why would you sell now? I don't think this is who he is. I don't think he forgot how to play baseball. I don't know. He's probably banged up. Something mental's going on. There's plenty of time, as we talked about earlier, with these later career breakouts. He already broke out. at 21 as a rookie. He'll be okay. You got to just bench him for now and hope for the best.
Yeah, he'd been working his way back from injury, and you kind of alluded to that. So I don't want to say it's a lost season, but we've talked about this on past episodes with the Braves. The entire lineup has struggled at times. Riley out for presumably the year now, maybe comes back during the playoffs. Matt Olson finally heating up a little bit. Acuna tears the ACL. And it's just across the board. Elvis has been out. The lineup hasn't been its traditional self. So I think to what you're saying, kind of a hold approach with Michael Harris. We're back to pitcher, and we're going to Milwaukee on this one. DL Hall. Last two appearances have been very, very good for DL Hall. The knee is healthy. The velocity is back up to areas that we'd like, touching 97 again. Strikeouts haven't necessarily been overwhelming for DL Hall, but neither have the walks, which is really important. DL Hall's been a name, floated for a number of years back to the Orioles. Are you excited for his 2025 prospect as a full-time starter in Milwaukee? Are you buying?
Depends on the price tag because he's a weird guy. Like some guys love him, some people hate him. And this flash of control that we just haven't seen, this command of his electric stuff. I always liked long hair DL Hall. He needs to grow that flow back out. But hey, actually, you know what? If he's throwing like this, he can do whatever he's doing right now. Whatever he's doing right now, whenever he's waking up, whatever he's eating, we just keep doing it. Because this is the upside that, frankly, man, how much credit do we give to Mike Elias over in Baltimore for being he's been a great GM, but trading away Norby, trading away DL Hall, as of right now, you love having Corbin Burns, obviously, but
Well, this is a thing though. Corbin hasn't been that great. He's been better than DL Hall, right? But DL Hall, from what we're seeing, especially over the last month, it's looking like this could have been a guy they could have really used over the next 5 years. Same thing with Norby.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. Shows that everyone's human, right? So, but yeah, DL Hall, man, hope the best for the guy. Seems like a nice guy. He's got electric stuff, like I said. He's had some kind of issues with velocity in terms of he kept getting banged up in Baltimore too. People I'm not sure if everyone remembers that, but beyond his control issues, his command issues, he was getting hurt quite a bit too. So it would look like he might be a reliever. Frankly, it wasn't clear this year if he would be. Right now he went for 1.2 innings recently. What happened there? Do you know?
Yeah, Milwaukee brought him up on August 30th. He got 7 innings, no runs. Sent him back down. Came back up September 4th. Went out back in the bullpen for the 4th. September 10th, also back in the bullpen. I think Milwaukee's just playing games at this point, not with him necessarily, but the Milwaukee Brewers and how they utilize their pitching.
Yeah.
When they asked Murphy if DL Hall after the August 30th would be back in the rotation, he was pretty equivocal about absolutely. He just dominated Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And then an hour later, they send him down. So this is, to me, clearly the GM making decisions for roster manipulation and whatnot. But I think he's a postseason starter, honestly, or at least a really important arm for them in the postseason. And then come next year, he's probably a starter. Milwaukee just has a lot of expiring contracts. Guys like Ross, guys like Savali, who's not expiring, but they have people that I think they trust more.
Yeah, it's just going to be but the main win for DL Hall though is that he is going to he was on the bubble of not being a starter anymore, right? Not given that trust. Like, all right, you're a bullpen guy now. Sorry, and frankly, he'd be an electric closer, so it wasn't the worst thing. And frankly, I guess we're not completely out of the woods with it, but we're really seeing strong signs to keep this guy in a starter's position for now.
Yeah, well, and they have Aaron Ashby as well, who wasn't ever as exciting of a prospect as DL Hall. DL Hall definitely had higher rankings than Aaron Ashby. Ashby had a nice rookie campaign before he got hurt and had the shoulder surgery, but they have both of them working out of the bullpen. Both of them are touching 97, 98. And I think the reality is DL Hall is probably a starter and Ashby's probably the guy that stays in the bullpen. But you brought up a great point. Like DL Hall could be an amazing closer. And that's the conversation I want you and I to have as we start talking about FYPD down the road, which is just simply, I don't know that there's as much of a risk and it's as bad of a connotation as we put on guys that might be, reliever risk or dominant closer risk because there's value. I'm going to stay with pitcher here for us, Doc. 2 names. I'm going to start with Spencer Arrighetti for Houston. Has flashed some really nice singular games this year, has 3 games over 10 strikeouts. Had a blow up a couple weeks ago. I got back on track this week. Are you buying or selling Arrighetti in 2025?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm buying. It's kind of like, I wish I bought in sooner. He had that scary blow up just the other day, so I wasn't a fan of that. But when you're here's the thing, guys. In these like medium to shallower dynasty keeper leagues, a guy like Arrighetti he'll bounce around. Eventually, people will kind of give up on the guy, right? And so I had opportunities to buy in one league in particular, my home league, and I'm like, I probably should have. But when you see like the double-digit Ks flashing, I would say almost every pitcher who is in the major leagues as a starter has the potential Just you have to be good if you're in the major leagues as a starter. Period. You have to have upside at least. Period. You have to have the upside to do it once. Anyone can, I would say pretty much literally anyone. Like Miles Michaelis, guys who don't do high strikeouts, they pretty much all have had a game with 10 strikeouts once. That said, once you see a guy keep doing it, even 9, 10, 11 strikeouts, you see repeats, buy. You know, that's why. And I remember Justin Steele was doing that early on in his career, which is funny because he's not like a super K guy. But I remember seeing flashes. I'm like, there we go. What? He's doing that again? Oh, yeah, this is going to be a guy. Because, even if, and like I think with Steele, he was trying to go for strikeouts a lot early on in his career, and that led to more volatility. Now he's just like this like stable guy who casually gets like, exactly 1 strikeout per inning. Anyway, Arrighetti, there's clearly a high ceiling here. I don't know, right? I don't know how consistent this will be. I don't know if these blowups are going to continue, but the fact that he's flashing so much at this point in his career, very excited for him in a great organization.
It was 4 games. I sold him short. So 11 strikeouts against Philadelphia on the 28th, 13 strikeouts against Boston on August 10th, 12 strikeouts against Tampa August 4th. That was the back-to-back dominant performance. Only on August 16th to give up 4 runs against the White Sox. So 4 games this season, and then 10 strikeouts against Colorado on June 26th. And see, that is probably the perfect line right there, Doc. June 26th against Colorado, so they were at home. Houston was 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, no walks, 10 Ks. Now that was his first real big breakout performance. It also came against Colorado. So it's like, oh, okay, like that's cute, but let's see more. Then he gave us the 3 games with 10 plus strikeouts, really solidifying who he was, kind of as you said, as the go buy him type player. Because you're right, I think anything over 2 10 strikeout performances on a season, you start to get me to buy in.
Yes.
Okay, next name. We're gonna go the opposite direction here. Bobby Miller. Ouch. 2024, basically a lost season. Are you still in on Bobby or no?
It's so weird. So I was like respecting Bobby Miller and his upside and thinking this guy's probably going to be ace-like or ace adjacent, something like that. But then also in like this the Dynasty Guru Discord, I remember I was getting into it with one guy. I think he was hyping up. I was like, Gray Raw's like awesome. I was talking about other young potential aces, like I think Grayson Rodriguez, for example. And he was just like, no, Bobby's the guy. He's gonna be like the best pitcher. And I was like, well, no, I mean, let's just see him do it first. I haven't seen it. It looks like he's shaping up to be a great, a stud. But frankly, the guys I was talking about had done a little bit more. And so, again, I'll take a little victory lap, I guess, but I don't want to. I haven't done it yet. I haven't talked about Bobby Miller. I try to keep it a little positive. Of course, people are going to be concerned, though. So we have to talk about it. 7.79 ERA. We got to talk about it, right? Like, is this guy going to have a major league career now, right? So still only 25 years old, in a great organization. I don't know, man. Is something physically wrong with him? Would be the question, right? Is he all right, or is he just like you're still seeing him flash the strikeout upside? Is this a guy who maybe nobody was talking about as a reliever risk? Maybe there is reliever risk. Maybe he's just gonna. Maybe the stuff plays up. I don't know. It's just I don't think anyone saw this coming. I'm not like I don't have him anywhere. So I'm like, I guess I'm not super concerned for myself. But if I owned him, you can't sell. You can't sell now. This is rock bottom. You've lost, and with a guy like Bobby Miller being on the Dodgers and all the pre-existing hopes for him, all you need is like a really cool like run, especially to start next year if he gets a shot. But you might want to consider selling if there are underlying issues here. How about you, Matt? Have you looked into what's wrong with Bobby Miller? I haven't done that diagnosis, and I'm confident there are people out there, especially Dodgers fans, who probably have a few things that they're. I remember hearing about health and how he might be playing not at 100% even.
Yeah, he had some health issues this year.
Oh, well, I just want to cut you off to say, like, the thing is, when I talk like that, I don't, and with like, Michael Harris as well. There's guys who had an injured list stint, and then there's guys who had that or didn't have that, but still have something going on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, he had a health issue this year. He was demoted a few times. It's kind of scary because it's not Walker Buehler where the velocity is completely down. But it's also kind of like, hey, the velocity's back. Like, you're back. Why aren't the results back? I remember this is probably 2018, 2019. Corbin Burns came up as a rookie, had a pretty nice performance out of the bullpen. Nothing crazy, flashing a little bit of potential. Came back the following year, had a 9 ERA. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And it was just it was what it was. Mechanical issues, confidence issues. I think this is just a lost year for Bobby Miller. And to your point of you can't sell him, what people have invested has been so incredibly high that you can't trade him. That's why you can't move him, because of what you've given up.
Yeah.
In a redraft or a startup, excuse me, I just got him in the 11th round of a 15 team. That's how far he's fallen. He was a top 4 round pick this offseason.
It almost
And
sounds high. 11th round almost sounds high with how far he's fallen.
yeah, I mean, I was a little aggressive. He was sandwiched in between Colt Keith and Suzuki. Machado, Blake Snell, Sandy Alcantara were names taken around him. Shane Baz as well. So I'm still buying on Bobby Miller, clearly.
Clearly.
Yeah. I probably would rather have Shane Baz if we're talking about like back to back. I mean, Baz went 2 picks before me. But when I'm looking at Bobby Miller, Blake Snell, Sandy Alcantara, Jack Flaherty, those were the names that were taken at kind of post Bobby Miller. I'm taking Bobby Miller for the upside long term. And I will say that too, because if he's a reliever risk, I'll take 99 out of the pen with really good secondary stuff. We've seen him put away major league hitters, so I know he can do that in the bullpen. But I believe the Dodgers can fix him. So I'm buying, honestly, because the price is finally where I think it's acceptable.
I saw Landon Knack in LA. He looked sharp. Him and Boyd were having a pitcher's duel. Game was flying by.
Well, yeah. So, what did you think of Knack's secondary stuff? Did you like the put away?
Man, it's like I'm telling you, the game flew by because no one could get anything going. It was, he was stifling everyone on the other team. Who hit a bomb? It was like Brian Rocchio hit a bomb eventually. It was so random. But he couldn't really. The Cleveland was having a hard time with it. Manzardo had a rough day. It was just no one was getting anything going off of Boyd or Knack for the most part. Which the reason I bring that up is like, okay, well, if Knack's producing and you have Yamamoto coming back, perhaps hopefully he's not really seriously injured long term here with that shoulder. Maybe they just don't have a spot for him in the rotation next year. I don't know, right? They're the Dodgers. They can't be messing around with this guy just getting lit up and obliterated every other game, right? So, and like you said, 99 out of the pen. Like, what does that mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Kopeck and Bobby Miller and like any of these other guys who are also doing well, like Hudson, Phillip. Like that's not. It's not a stoppable bullpen. You almost don't want your reliever or your starters going deep. You're like, hey, stop. No, we're good. 5 or 6, fine. We'll just destroy these guys with our electric relievers from here on out.
Well, that's a good
So
point. I didn't even think about too. You could turn Bobby Miller into a stretch, a 2-3
yeah,
inning guy. You could put him into a starter's role where he just goes 9 batters. And I'm glad you brought up Knack. Knack's 27. He was a second round pick. He's been kind of disrespected in the industry because he's performed well. I mean, you look at this year, 11 games, 9 started, 54 innings. It's a .96 whip and a 3 ERA. Like Bobby Miller, you have to do a lot to surpass Landon Knack at this point. Like Knack's done really well.
yeah. And frankly, to answer your question about his stuff, I wasn't like right behind the plate, Dodger Stadium, bro. So it's tough for me to exactly pinpoint what he was doing. It's actually better to watch on TV if you or at a better
Yep.
viewing spot for that. That said, you can tell from I was in a good I wasn't in the nosebleeds, had a good enough spot down the first baseline that I could see the hitters how they were swinging and just everyone's body language and where the ball was going. Right, like I said, no offense was being generated, and Cleveland looked frustrated. So yeah, passed the eye test.
Nice. Okay. So moving on from pitchers, we're gonna break into the final stretch of hitters here. First name up is Parker Meadows, a guy the industry has been really excited about now for a little bit over a year. Are you buying or selling this nice finish to the 2024 season by
I
Parker
mean,
Meadows?
I guess just keep him in AAA for the first half and bring him up in the second half. He's doing the same thing as last year. I don't know what to think, man. Like it's just weird. Like the Meadows is, man. I don't even want. Like, I almost don't even want to talk about Austin because it's so sad what happened. It's just mental issues. Took what could have been a great hitter out of the game, right? And so with Parker Meadows, he's a different beast though. He's 6'5", but also so fast. He's more of like a toolsy guy over a hit tool specimen, and I don't know. Like OBP leagues, you got to dock him. Like he's looking like he's really going to be a liability there, no matter what. Like maybe he can get up to 320 OBP, like as a career, that would be acceptable. But that's not going to help you a lot. His batting average, I don't think will ever be great. I kept questioning other analysts. If I'm an analyst, I don't know. I'm just some guy, but I kept people before this season. I was like, I like Parker Meadows. I think he's fun, but I think you're also like, are you not concerned about X, Y, or Z? Like I think his minor league career batting average was like 230, and I'm like, it usually goes down in the majors, or it doesn't. Like it doesn't show me that he's got a hit tool that will ever be above average. That said, if he can come out here and be like how about this? Maybe like a more powerful Maikel Garcia. Weird comp because I actually think Garcia has a good hit tool he can tap into better. But as of right now, they're both just giving you like kind of mid OBP at best. But they're doing enough to be on your fantasy team in a lot of leagues. So whatever that means to you, right? I think there's upside here of maybe 15 home runs, but I think over 30 stolen bases if you can lock down a decent enough playing time. That means something. 30 stolen bases means something. So I don't think he's going to be exciting enough in the ratios to really help you there, but you're going to hope that Detroit gets better because the problem with the Detroit guys is that RBIs and runs are not being – he's not going to help you there either, really, right, unless the offense comes together.
It's really hard to read his profile just because of the drastic splits. April 25 games, he had a .100. That is a .100 batting average. Not good. A .217 on base percentage. I mean, he was atrocious. There's no surprise they demoted him. Had slight games and appearances in May. Didn't play at all in June. Came back in July. 3 games. Really nice, 3 games. But August is really where we start to see the change. In 22 games in August, he batted .322. That OBP finally jumped above where you like it. So 359 in those 22 games in August. So far in September, the average has come back down. It's at 273
Yeah.
in 8 total games, but the OBP has stayed above 340. It's at 342. So I think to your point about Connor Norby, the same thing can probably be said about Meadows. We absolutely need to see how he finishes the season, right? If we can get in August and September with an OBP above 340 and an average above let's just say 260, so that power and speed, does that help you at all going into 2025?
I mean, so here's the deal. I'll definitely take a flyer on Meadows. He's still pretty young too, only 24 years old. I'll take a flyer on Meadows, and I think he'll come at a better. He might even come at a better value than Norby because there was a lot of industry hype on Meadows this year,
Yeah.
and people don't forget that when they get burned. Like VS2 is going to go. Victor Scott's going to go. That'll come into our next guy. He's going to go at an extreme value. Extreme, like not drafted in most leagues for redrafts. And Parker Meadows, I think it's going to be hard to earn some trust back. But if you're smart and if you're forgiving, I think there's enough upside here to take a gamble late in drafts, and I would.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, well, let's move on to our next guy, and we can kind of bake Victor Scott into this because I agree with everything you just said. Moving on, we have Pete Crow Armstrong, the Chicago Cubs, which I'm going to be just completely honest. I think I was wrong. Um, I felt really good about where I was with my take early in the season and what he has done to kind of close out the 2024 campaign. I've even picked him up in a few leagues to benefit from the drastic splits that we've seen. But Pico Armstrong did not start the season very well. In April, his slight 7 games, he batted 278 in 18 at bats. May, 233 and 43 at bats. June, he was atrocious at a 145 clip and 69 at bats. July, 197 batting average and 66 at bats. August really started to change things, much like Parker Meadows. In 86 at bats, 26 games, Pico Armstrong batted 314. He had 4 home runs, 6 stolen bases. Here in September, he's batting 355 with 1 home run in 9 games. No stolen bases yet, but on the season, he definitely has put together the speed with 26 stolen bases, 8 home runs. What do you think, Doc? Buying, selling Pete Crow Armstrong?
He is who I thought he was. He is exactly who I thought he was. Well, he's pretty much exactly who I thought he was. I'm not going to give too much recency bias, man. I mean, so let me give you a few numbers that don't make sense. So in September so far, there's only 9 games, but he's got 355 batting average, 364 OBP. It's already sus, right? Too close together. 12 strikeouts and 0 walks. It's like not sustainable, obviously. And then you see an amazing August, 100%. I mean, I'm not even going to break down all the details, but that was a great month in terms of but it's the outlier so far. Because this month, that's not what he's doing right now is cool. It's not sustainable in any way. Every other month was not that great. So he basically had one good month. That said, when I say I never said bust, but he is who I thought he was. I think he's going to be I think he's looking like I think his overall year is actually closer to what I expect, which is like 240s batting average, maybe. He's got a 290 OBP on the year. I think he can creep over 300, and again, we're looking at over a full season I think over 30 stolen bases is going to happen. And I think he'll get, 10 to 15 home runs. I think that means something. I think that's worth having. I think he's very Parker Meadowsy, right? Plays some electric defense out there. I don't actually know Meadows' defense. I think it's okay. I saw him play. He seemed okay. Last year I saw him. But I know Pete plays very good defense. You want to see something interesting? I was looking at the splits. I don't know what it is. Maybe PCA loves adversity. He is on the road 281 batting average, at home 193. Almost the same amount of games too. And the OBP is 325 and 243. That's weird. That's weird, huh? I don't know what that is. That's very strange because it's not like Wrigley is a hitter's park for the most part. So weird. Don't know what's going on there. We're not going to look into it too much. If it keeps happening throughout his career, I guess that's a mental thing. But he kind of is who I thought he was, man. And frankly, yeah, if I think that people said, okay, let's slow down a bit. I heard a guy on Twitter X say, "Is PCA?" He tagged me. He said, "Is PCA who we thought VS2 could be?" I don't think so. I think he's just who PCA should be, right? Like, and I think like PCA had a lot of hype. He actually originally had way more hype. Victor Scott was a kind of a pop up guy over the last year, and I put him up higher, and I still do because I think that if you had Victor Scott with a 240 something average and a 300 OBP, I think you're looking at like 40 to 50 stolen bases.
Yep.
So that's maybe more. Well, I'm still got faith in the kid. But point is, if you can handle that, if you're playing in a batting average league, especially guys like Meadows, guys like PCA are worth a little more because a 240 batting average is fine compared to like a 300 OBP. That's dragging you down fairly considerably. So, and right now it's below that. So, yeah. And I'll tell you this one last thing on PCA. And the nice thing about defense, guys, is that, and the same goes for Victor Scott, it'll get you on the field eventually. As long as you can hit enough, it will keep you on the field if you can play elite center field defense. So
yeah, just look at Kevin Kiermaier.
Yeah. So there's room for, and I'll add this, there's room for growth. He's still a kid. So if he can just bump these things up moderately, now we're talking about a higher ceiling. Maybe it's 20 home runs. Maybe it's 40 stolen bases. Now he's a fantasy stud. Now he's, yeah.
Couple more home runs, couple more stolen bases, maybe a profile change.
Sure.
I think, I think his stock is PCA is, I think honestly, Doc, I think trending up heading into 2025.
Too many strikeouts, not enough walks.
Okay.
Yeah, just I don't like the disparity. It is, and like I said, as much as he's been better lately, 12 strikeouts to 0 walks in September doesn't make me feel better about him.
Yeah, it doesn't help your case. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Next name on the list, Tristen Casas. Has not had a very good 2024, but there was the injury in there. 180 total plate appearances, 157 total at bats, 8 home runs, a 242 average. OBP is at 339. Oh man, Doc, are you buying going into 2025 in Dynasty? Or are you concerned that this might be a fizzle?
Seemed like the sky was the limit, huh? Seemed like there was like a lot of room to grow here. So what a weird sport. Such a crazy sport. What was it, an oblique injury he had?
Yeah, it was like a separated rib or something like that.
I could have sworn I heard something like this might be something that affects him long term. I don't know, or it's like going to keep happening. Was it his back? I don't know. But that would be my main concern is figuring out this injury situation if it's going to keep happening. Maybe he
torn cartilage in his left rib cage.
Maybe he needs to do more yoga in the sun. All that drama, right? Anyway, it's buy low. I'd buy low depending on how low. If you're playing, if the GM is the guy who thought he was a top 5 first baseman before the season, you're not getting him. No one's going to want to give up on this year. They're going to write off this year and say, yeah, he'll be 25 years old next year. He'll be fine. Other than that, though, if you can get him at a discount in a dynasty league, I'd be willing to check it out. It's interesting, right? It went from like overnight. Boston didn't have a lot of competition. Looked like he was the cornerstone. I think we're about to enter the Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell era, though. Now, and of course, they're not threats at first base, but it just goes. It's going to be a situation where, well, now you don't get as much slack, I guess, if you slump now, because we're not banking on you like we were 5 seconds ago. So that said, he's a kid. I love the OBP. I love the power. I think he's a little quirky. I'm kind of an old school guy, so I'm like, come on, kid, stop being a weirdo. But hey, that's if it's more fun for baseball, maybe. Hey, he's got me talking about him, right? So good for him. I hope I root for kids, these guys to have long, healthy careers. If he can stay healthy, he's great. Again, folks, look into the injury more. I haven't done full diligence on it. Make sure this is a guy who's going to be able to play long term. And if he is, like I said, I'm an OBP supremacist, and I think he's got that beautiful blend of on base capabilities, taking walks, and cranking bombs. So upside is still through the roof. I'd be holding and or buying in Dynasty. It's kind of funny. It didn't sound like I was too pro Casas there, but I ended up saying buy. So here we are.
Yeah, I absolutely think it's a buy, right? Torn rib cage cartilage, I don't know much about it either. You could probably find some doctors, some WebMDs that talk about what the prognosis long-term is. But you said it earlier, a lot of managers viewed him as a top 5 dynasty, top 3 dynasty first base asset. And I think you're spot on with those managers probably not wanting to sell him for whatever you're buying him for at the moment. So if you can buy him in your leagues, buy him. That's my take. That's Doc's take. Next name, while you were talking about Casas, I wanted to pull up his numbers and compare really quick because Casas had a great 2023 slash line. Next name is Mark Vientos, who actually has similar numbers in 2024 in less at bats. Vientos finally got the opportunity to play for New York Mets at third base, 24 years old. We've talked about him a few times this year. Cut down on the strikeouts just enough to have an impact. 28% K rate this year, not fantastic, but lower than where it's been over his career. 24 home runs, 277 average with a 335 on base percentage. Doc, Mark Vientos, buying or selling?
Mark Vientos is a hard buy, man. Mark Vientos is a hard buy. So you look at his numbers, 24 home runs, 62 RBIs. You're like, it's like an okay kind of year. Man, I even forget myself sometimes. He's only played 95 games. The Mets jerked him around to begin the year. That's insane. I'm going to say this again. 95 games, 349 at bats, and he's got 24 home runs. He's not being platooned anymore. He's playing all the time. And so you can prorate this over a year. What does that mean? This means 40 home run upside, 30 plus at a minimum, and the RBIs, I mean, the Mets are, better than we thought they'd be, obviously. So I think you have 100 RBI upside. I think you have 35 home run upside at the least. And he's not killing your ratios. He's actually got a 348 expected OBP, which means he's got a little bit of room to grow from his 335, which is fine. With these numbers, that's fine. 330 plus OBP is excellent, or it'll do. And batting average leagues, or in case where you have some leagues, I have a league where I'm batting average and OBP. Well, he's almost at 280 OBP. Sorry, 280 batting average, which is fantastic. It looks like he's maybe playing a little over his head there, but the metrics love him. 94 percentile barrel. His hard hit is 81 percentile. His sweet spot's great. His bat speed's okay. The concern is his whiffs. He's 6 percentile whiffs. He's still under 30% K. He's 28% K rate. Not what you want to see, but I don't really get nervous unless it's 30 or over, and I really don't care if you're slugging like he is. He's just mashing the ball. He's making great contact. Plays third base, which is not as deep as it used to be, I want to say. He's only 24, and he's only 24 years old. So, yeah, man, Mark Vientos, the hype is really weird. It's just not there to the extent that I think it should be, especially for a guy in a big market. You'd think people would be going nuts over this guy. Imagine he was a Yankee. I think maybe we'd be hearing more about him.
No, if you're a Yankee, we'd be talking about how he is the second coming of Alex Rodriguez. And I like the Yankees, but no, Doc, I think everything you said is perfect. I mean, this kid is everything we had hoped he could be 2 years ago, and finally being given the opportunity. 95 games, as you said, like he is replenishing the third base stock, if you will, as the Bregmans and the Machados. Well, Machado's definitely rebounding, but as some of these players that we like, the Arenados, start to fall off as dynasty assets and true dominant third baseman. We got one last name before we run today, Doc. This is a guy that I actually just traded, but has put together a pretty decent 2024. It's Jake McCarthy for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Are you buying or selling?
I don't know what to do with him, man. I don't know I threw his name. I actually requested we put him on here, but I don't know what to do. He's so fast. He's like 98th percentile speed. He doesn't really strike out or whiff, but he doesn't take like a ton of walks. It seems like he's I don't know. He's playing out of his boots, I think, with the OBP. It's a 363 right now. That's not happening. I don't think that'll be staying steady going forward, but it looks like he makes enough contact. I hate it. His barrel percentage is gross. His EVs are gross. His bat speed is gross. It's annoying because he's 6'2", 215. He's like a kind of like a linebacker looking dude to some extent, a little bit lean. But yeah, it's just weird, right? You think he would have more power coming out of there for whatever reason. It doesn't happen. But Yeah, he just manages to square up the ball, and he's a baseball. I think he's becoming a ball player. Yeah, dude. How about this? He's the fast Alec Burleson, right? Zero, over the overall season, they both have electric bursts, but their overall line is kind of like mid. Like it's good, but you're like the excitement's not going to be there next year. I don't think. I think Jake McCarthy and Alec Burleson, despite their hot streaks, I think they're going to be undervalued next year's draft. And I think that they're just like good baseball players. There's upside here for McCarthy if he can, if he can be more consistent earlier in the year, get more opportunities earlier in the year. I think you're looking at 30 plus stolen bases, and I've said this this is now the third time this podcast. That means something. 30 plus stolen bases, guys who don't drain you elsewhere are useful. So it doesn't really matter if McCarthy gives you, 10 to 15 home runs or whatever. I think he's good for the 10 to 15, which is pretty cool. I think he'll give you a pretty good batting average. I think this OBP is unsustainable. I don't think he's a 300 hitter. Like he's basically hitting 300 right now, which is insane. But the Diamondbacks, let's say this, they don't seem like they're going away. Earlier this year, it kind of did, right? Maybe it was a flash in the pan last year. Maybe the development wasn't what we thought. No, they're sticking around, and he's going to be part of this movement going forward. So I guess I just talked myself into buying Jake McCarthy, but buying at value, not at the current ratios at least. I don't think he's this superstar, but he's like an Alec Burleson, a fast Alec Burleson. Like if you traded the power for the speed.
Yeah, that's an interesting comp you bring up because Burleson had such a hot stretch there for a while, and McCarthy's also had a value stretch. It is really also interesting to look at the profile of him and Connor Norby. They're weirdly similar numbers when you look at average exit velocity, barrel, hard hit, bat speed squared up. And yet, Norby's able to really tap into that pull side power. Well, McCarthy has as well. He has 8 home runs on the year, which is exactly what Norby has way more plate appearances and at bats, but definitely brings the speed. Interesting. I as I just said, I sold McCarthy, um, but I didn't really need speed. I was going for the upside of the player that I acquired. I like what you said. I think it depends on league and what you need, but definitely McCarthy is a guy that's getting playing time and is giving speed. Those guys have, as you said, value as well. We had some prospects we were going to talk about today. We will save those for next week. We are done for today. Doc, did you have anything before we say goodbye?
I missed y'all, but I'm still yo Huckleberry.
We'll catch you guys next week.